and Republican congressional leader Mike Pence from Indiana. Here they are. We bring in Democratic Congressman Frank Pallone from New Jersey and Republican congressional leader Mike Pence from Indiana. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Larry.
Mr. Pallone, let me begin with you. I thought it was the spill rate, stupid. I don't mean to call you stupid, but I'm borrowing Bill Clinton's phrase, it's the economy, stupid. Seems to me the whole nation, and of course the Gulf, is focused on the spill rate, which we have learned is actually deteriorating. Mr. Obama hardly talked about that last night. Did he miss an opportunity to create a real bipartisan effort to stop the spill rate?
Well, I think the problem is we don't know how to prevent the spill from continuing. And so his focus was on basically saying to BP, you've got to pay for this. You have to set up an escrow account. We're going to have independent people review it so that the claims are fair. And we're going to have BP pay for long-term damage. The emphasis was that it's BP's responsibility to take liability, because we still don't know how long it's going to take to actually, before the flow stops.
Well, I hear you on that, but Mike Pence, let me come back to you. I mean, the president seems to be, I think, deflecting a lot of this away from the spill rate and towards punitive financial retribution for BP. Now, I don't want to defend BP. They're, they're going to do what they're going to have to do here. But the point I'm making is, last night, Mr. Obama said, in a matter of days or weeks, we will have 90% of the spill rate capped. He gave us no logic, no reason, no answer. He's not calling in ExxonMobil and the other oil people who know how to do this thing. He didn't waive the Jones Act, the foreign flag tankers that might be able to help. I mean, was this a bungling of the absolute key point that America is worried about, which is how long, how great, how damaging will the spill be?
Well, I think last night was a missed opportunity, Larry. I think, look, Frank and I would both agree strongly that BP has a responsibility to cap that well, and BP has a financial responsibility to provide all of the resources necessary to mitigate impacts on the families, the businesses, the communities, and the environment in the Gulf region. But the president focusing last night on those issues as opposed to focusing on how he is working the problem, how he is taking the lead in this case and explaining to the American people how we're going to get that well sealed, how we're going to get it captured between now and then, and how we're going to deal with this extraordinary and expanding environmental disaster with every public and private resource from at home and abroad. He did not do. I mean, again, last night I thought, and then, bringing up the idea of resurrecting the cap-and-trade legislation in the midst of this widening national crisis in the Gulf, I thought was, again, completely off the priorities of the American people at this time. The American people want to hear how this president is going to take the lead and marshal all resources at his disposal, public and private, to protect our coastline and mitigate the impact on the families and the communities and the environment.
See, Frank,
Larry, if you think that technology exists to stop this immediately, or that the technology exists to prevent spills in the future, I think you're kidding yourself. The lesson of this is we don't have the technology, and that's why we shouldn't be doing drilling in deep water, and it should stop, and it should be permanently stopped, because there's no way to prevent spills or to necessarily stop them when they occur.
But now, Frank, he said 90%. You see, I'm latching on right at the beginning of the speech. He said in a matter of days or weeks, we will have a 90% cap of the spill rate. And my point is, this crisis, this is an ecological, environmental, and economic catastrophe. I agree. And BP has got to be held totally responsible. I agree with all of that. But the country, every single day, is glued to TV screens about the spill, which is making our country worse. And if the president said he's got a cap for 90%, why didn't he go there? Why didn't he call for a bipartisan effort? Why didn't he call in the leaders of the oil industry that testified yesterday and are critical? Didn't he miss a tremendous opportunity?
No, because look, there's no guarantee that we're going to be able to stop the spill. Obviously, he and BP and others are trying their best to stop it and, do the relief wells, and hopefully that works. But I mean, the bottom line is I think we have to recognize that the technology isn't there necessarily to stop it. And we're going to do the best we can, and everybody's working hard to do the best we can. But if, I think the lesson from all this is less dependence on fossil fuel. We can't keep pushing, out further and further and hoping that we're going to be able to drill and solve our energy problems. We need renewables. We need more efficiency. The reason he said that we need to pass an energy bill is because we need to move towards renewables. We need more efficiency. We need less reliance on fossil fuels because we can't keep pushing out.
I understand all that, but I think it's besides the point right now. Mike Pence, let me come back to this. Yeah. Mr. Obama really started another jihad against carbons, against fossil fuels. He mentioned the House cap-and-trade bill. Mike Pence, I don't think the public is very interested in a cap-and-trade bill right now. I think the public is interested in stopping the spill and also creating jobs to solve unemployment and this very weak economic recovery. A moratorium on drilling doesn't create jobs. It loses jobs. And no discussion, no gathering of the country, no unifying themes to stop the spill rate, to me, means Mr. Obama missed his whole mark last night.
Well, I think he did miss his mark. Look, I got a lot of respect for Frank. I respect his views on the environment. I disagree on the climate change bill. But that's not the debate the American people want us having right now. They want to see this administration, as the law requires. Ever since the Exxon Valdez, the Oil Pollution Act was adopted, it says the president shall create a plan for containing the discharge. The president was put in the lead after the Exxon Valdez crisis, and yet, we've heard over the last 57 days, and I'm glad the president finally met with BP's executives today, but we've heard over the last 57 days different versions of its BP's problems, or, Admiral Allen's in the lead. What we've not seen is the kind of energetic, focused leadership on capping the well and on containing this massive oil spill. We're not going to cap that well with cap and trade, and the American people know it. But let me say one other thing.
Larry, we need to get away from the idea that we're going to solve these problems with technology and continue to drill and go further out, and that technology is going to solve the problem.
Frank, you make important points, and we need a national debate on cap and trade. I agree with you on that. But what I'm saying is right here and now, 8 weeks into this massive emergency catastrophe,
that's my point.
The key point is stopping the spill rate.
Larry,
and to me, Mr. Obama didn't go there last night. Why isn't he bringing in? Why isn't he bringing in all these experts, hands-on experts from Exxon and Chevron and Shell? He's not even talking to them.
You're buying into the idea that big oil is going to be able to solve the problem. They caused the problem.
Well, who else knows this better? The government can't figure it out. Frank, why not go to the guys who have not had a spill in 40 years?
They obviously are trying, but my point is that they may not be able to stop it, and they may not be able to stop it as quickly as we like. And that's why we have to look towards cap and trade and other answers and get away from drilling and fossil fuels and moving further into deeper waters where we don't have the technology to deal with the problem.
Larry, let me tell you, I was here on Capitol Hill on September the 11th, so was Frank. Except I was at the Capitol Hill Police Chief's office with the Democrat and Republican leadership of the House and Senate from 10 a.m. till noon. What I saw there is what the American people would like to see now. I saw Democrat and Republican leadership in the midst of a national crisis say, we're taking everything controversial off the legislative calendar. We are going to work the problem from this crisis day forward. We're going to make sure to protect the country, provide for our troops, secure our countrymen. That's what we did after 9/11. That's what the president should have done last night.
That's right.
Work the problem, cap the well, contain the discharge.
You're kidding yourself if you think that technology is going to solve the problem. It doesn't.
Frank Pallone, it's a pleasure to have you on this program. I appreciate it. Mike Pence, you're always welcome here. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you, Larry.
All right. On the